Well, there it is. There's been some PTR patch notes. So Blizzard are actually going to be making a patch for Warcraft 3, expected at mid-April. So the patch notes are as follows on the PTR. Kaivax says, Loktar everyone. First, we'd like to give you a quick update on where we are with ranked play, leaderboards and player profiles. This Warcraft team is committed to delivering you these features. However, due to the nature of the world today, it's taken longer than we planned. We thank you, our passionate community, for your understanding, and continuing to support Warcraft 3. Today, we've began publicly testing patch 1.32.10, which addresses a critical bug fix that allowed the players to exploit information from the opposing players by using rally points in the fog of war. Thank you, everyone, who reached out to inform us about this issue. Additionally, with the ESL Pro League wrapping up for 2020, we decided to make some balance changes or updates to address some key community feedback about item balance, item pricing, and some pain points for both human and undead. We also revisited previous changes. Once again, thank you to all the community contributors who continue to put out content and send us great feedback. Great? Please test these changes via the PTR, as we will be monitoring and calibrating throughout the PTR phase. Please remember these changes are a work in progress and subject to change, so please continue to provide feedback. We hope to release this patch sometime in mid-April, depending on how feedback and testing goes. The Warcraft 3 team. I'm not even sure, like, who is the Warcraft 3 team? Like, literally, there is no one, right? But anyway. We have a balance update for the most part, and some gabber on about the fact that they're still working on ranked play and leaderboards and player profiles. However, at this stage, those things aren't even that relevant anymore, right? We already have War3 Champions. If you've not heard about War3 Champions, it's basically a community-created ladder system that actually works and does a very good job of it. And you can also have your own profile and update your information there. So Blizzard will obviously implement their own eventually, because that was the plan to do, and they've promised to do it, so that's what they're going to do. And that's obviously where they're closest to completing. I don't know why it's so hard to create custom campaigns or implement the feature for custom campaigns. I would have thought it's a lot harder to implement a ranked ladder play, but there you go. They still need to do custom campaigns. I would like them to do a search feature for custom games as well, so we don't actually have to scroll through thousands of freaking maps every single time we want to find the same map that we played last time, or even just reload the last map that we played last time. But anyway, they've gone lazy as usual, and they do the easiest thing, which is just basically a balance test. Like I said this in the Warcraft 3 1 year later Reforged video. Yeah, Warcraft 3 Reforged 1 year later. It's the easiest thing to do, is just do a few balance changes. I can do that. I can literally just pull up the editor right now and go, okay, so riflemen are now going to take 2 seconds longer to build, and they're going to cost 10 less gold. Boom. There you go. Easy. So this isn't too impressive, but at least the patch notes are roughly in the right spot, as far as I can tell, balance-wise. I'm not an expert, so take this with a grain of salt, but having a look through these, it does actually look like an improvement, at least for human players, because there's a lot of human buffs. So, human. Improved lumber tech requirement removed. This was definitely needed. I've said this for the longest time, that human always have the issue with lumber. That's their main gripe. I play human mostly, but I also play random, and I know the difference, how it feels as a human player as opposed to playing any other race. And you never have enough lumber. If you dare to go for a fast expansion, which in some cases you kind of have to do depending on who you're fighting against, you're not going to have enough lumber to tech for like freaking 10 minutes. So you're still stuck on tier 1 whilst your opponents are like tier 3, straight tech to tier 3. So it makes it so uncomfortable, and you're just stuck freaking messing footman, which ain't going to get you anywhere. You obviously don't have enough lumber for towers as well when you need it. So advanced lumber tech requirement changed from castle to keep. Oh, actually, no. Oh, I see. Yep, okay. So I think you get the default lumber tech. So you still need to build a lumber mill. That's still going to cost you 110 gold. And then you still need to spend 100 gold for the better lumber. So there's still going to be 210 gold spent just on improving the lumber. I personally would think it would be better if peasants just had an improved lumber send back rate. So for example, instead of chopping the tree 10 times and bringing it back, they can do it up to 15 times or something. That would make a big improvement, I think, for the amount of lumber that they require for the game to play. However, anyway, advanced lumber tech, that's now also at keep instead of castle, because you can actually upgrade the 10 lumber to 20 lumber right away at tier 1 now instead of tier 2. Developers notes, in a human versus undead matchup, the human player is generally expected to lose some peasants throughout the early to mid game. The human player also has to invest a lot in wood for early defense and use militia quite frequently to defend, exactly to creep as well, which causes them to have a good gold to wood ration imbalance. This change should help human players balance their economy and make it slightly easier to transition into the later part of the game and unlock key units against the undead. Knights now have Sundering Blades by default. With the addition of Sundering Blades passive, we've really seen a lot more Knight usage, and we like that a lot. However, it takes a long time for Knights to come along online with their multiple upgrades. We feel that allowing Sundering Blades to be on Knights by default allows them to have an immediate impact when built, while giving them some uniqueness as a heavy late game unit. Now, the way I see this is that's a pretty big buff. But obviously, when you do have Knights, you kind of do need to upgrade 2 times the Sundering Blades and the Animal War Training to give them the extra damage versus medium armor and the extra health. And it's quite sluggish. Getting to tier 3 is quite a struggle as human. So, is this now needed? Because it should technically be easier to get to tier 3 as human, now that lumber is a little bit easier. And the other thing is this kind of OP? Sundering Blades versus Crypt Fiends and stuff like that, or Archers. What it is supposed to do is be good versus Mountain Giants. But Mountain Giants haven't been touched, and they are still OP and obnoxious as all heck. The double taunt is like, just no. Just no. Give them the one taunt, that taunt that comes in the middle out of nowhere that you don't have any control over, that completely and utterly removes all of the commands that you just gave like 4 seconds ago. Yeah, it's so Mountain Giants, basically, the way I see this is you should make Sundering Blades a default if you're going to go down this road, but nerf the power of Sundering Blades by about 20% or something. But in turn for that, make Mountain Giants far less tanky versus other units that aren't Knights. Now, again, how you want to go about this, whether it decreases their health or it decreases their starting armor, anything along those lines, I think that would be a better way to approach this. But sure, getting Knights with Sundering Blades for free is pretty damn nice. I'm a human player, so I'm obviously quite biased, but I'm telling you, that's kind of OP. Priest Dispel range, increased from 600 to 700. I think that's definitely necessary. Priests are a very strong caster unit, but it's incredibly noticeable how clunky they are whenever it comes to actively using their abilities, such as Dispel. They basically, like, charge into the enemy because of the range of Dispel. And by the time they get there, they get killed. So the developer notes say, changes to the overall meta have moved players towards favouring units in certain matchups. We noticed that whenever a priest would try to cast a Dispel, they would immediately get focused down by piercing damage and be killed immediately. This slight increase in range should improve the stability and quality of life for the priest. So yes, I think that's a good change. Scout Tower, Guard Tower, Cannon Tower, Arcane Tower, repair rate is now 5 seconds faster. So I think it's currently at 20 seconds repair rate, but I might be wrong on that. I think, let's take a look. So we got Scout Tower, repair. So you got repair time, 20 seconds there. Oh, I see. So yeah, definitely not for... So Guard Tower, okay, they're a bit different. If we just say Guard Tower and Arcane Tower, since those are the ones that basically get built. So 5 seconds out of 50 seconds. So that's like a, what is it, a 10% buff? That's not too much. But a lot of people are getting a bit nuts about that, thinking that's going to be a big deal. Either I've misread that, it's not a 10% buff and it's a bigger deal than that. But otherwise, yeah, that seems okay. As small increments are always best. If you're ever going to make a change, unless it's blatantly obvious that something is overpowered or not, it should only really be by like a 10 to 20% marker, in my opinion. So this was a change we tested the previous PTR but pulled away from to see how the previous patch performed. Since then, we've seen players shift to more range units, and we feel this change is needed to help humans defend against certain pushes. Currently, if a human reacts immediately to a threat with a handful of peasants, it is still not enough to prevent their towers from going down. Hence the term Siege Fiends. Yes, this has been a problem for human players for the longest time. Is all it takes is literally like 2 to 3 archers or 2 to 3 crit fiends attacking a guard tower that's upgrading, and whoom, it's gone. Even if you grab like 5 peasants and start repairing it, oh, they pierce through that like a beast. It melts like butter. So yeah, I think that's necessary. Or just make it so that piercing damage doesn't do so much bloody damage versus upgrading towers. Nerf the piercing damage versus upgrading towers by like 20% or something, if you don't want to make the repair rate change. Siege engine tank. Bounty is now 60 instead of 85. Not really a big deal. No one really builds siege engines anyway. Generally speaking, if you go siege engines, you're normally putting yourself in a position where you are feeding the enemy, and you can still lose the game. They are a bit of an all-in unit, because once the enemy clear up those siege engines, you don't have an army, because they're costing 4 food. So if you've got 3 to 4 tanks, which is kind of what you need to actually do some significant damage to a base, they kill that, that's 16 food. That undead doesn't lose any units from the siege engine, only the buildings potentially. And then they've got 16 food advantage on. Yeah, I've been this place before. So yeah, whatever, just change this. It doesn't mean anything really. While we wanted to reduce the overall effectiveness of certain siege engine strategies, we realized that due to the inflexibility of our experience leveling systems, setting the bounty at 85 was too high. There has been some ongoing community sentiment that tanks were a good place previously, so we've reduced the experience bounty. We will continue to monitor this and make additional changes in lieu of this one. Night Elf. Druid of the Claw starting mana increase from 100 to 125. Developers notes a small quality of life change that was requested by the community, which also helps Master Bears have slightly more utility right away. That's perfectly fine. I don't seem to have much of an issue with that. Enjoy, Night Elves! Undead. Acolyte hit point regeneration while on Blight reduced from 4 to 3 health per second. This is definitely needed. Acolytes are ridiculous, but they're practically invincible if you know how to micro. Developers notes, in the previous patch, we saw the regen rate on Blight double. This was to address the vulnerability of the unit being exposed and stationary while mining gold. As the overall spirit of the change was heading in the right direction, we are reducing the number slightly to allow for more harassment opportunities from the opposing player. So Acolytes move quicker since they ever did. They have far better health regeneration since they ever did. Like, these things make it way harder for them to actually die now. So I think that's a fair change. Rod of Necromancy cooldown reduced from 26 to 24. So slight calibration of the previous change. We've noticed that this change has more effect on undead creeping than intended, so we're reducing this number slightly. I think that's perfectly fine. Undeads have their particular creep routes. I don't know any because I just play the game. I don't expertise on anything in particular, but yes, apparently 2 seconds might make a big difference to a certain creep route for an undead. So fair enough. Ritual Dagger gold cost reduced from 125 to 100. That's perfectly fine. We're reducing the cost of Dagger to promote its use more and to bring it in line with its healing performance. I think that's perfectly fine. It's pretty trash. Anything that's like that is pretty trash, just like the human scroll. Like, I think every race would take healing salve 5 times over their own healing methods, you know? So yeah, anything to reduce the cost of these kind of things. I think scroller regeneration should be cheaper as well. Like, I would take a 200 gold healing salve over 100 gold scroller regeneration. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Like, it is just so ridiculous. Like, healing salve is like, woo-wee, that is imbalanced as poop. But they got away for it a long time, those orcs. Crypt Lord Impale stun hero duration reduced from 1 to 3 to 1 to 1.5 to 2. And Crypt Lord damage reduced from, well, basically those numbers to those numbers. So 75, 120, 165, 60, 110, and 150. I think this is fine. I think Crypt Lord is obviously a bit strong. As long as they don't change the amount of units that can be impaled, because that's really cool and satisfying, getting like a whole bucket load of units and impaling them all. I don't like any caps. I think caps make the game boring. But I think this is a fair change because it's a stun. It's a strong bloody stun. It's an AoE stun, and if lined up perfectly, you are stunning a hell of a lot. You're getting a lot of value for what this spell actually costs. So I think that's fine. We're bringing the overall stun duration in line with other hero stun abilities. Please note its overall stun duration against units remains unchanged while looking at Impale and potentially changing other units in other functions. We notice that the threat of impaled damage is the main reason that certain strategies are not viable against an undead player. That goes at Crypt Lord first and levels fast. Yep. So Frost Armor duration is now scaled per level. So at level 1 it's 2 seconds, level 2 it's 4 seconds, and level 3 is 6 seconds. So it currently sits at 4 seconds at the moment throughout all of the levels. So this is a buff for the late game, a nerf for the early game. There was something that the community has been requesting for some time, and it addresses the early power spike against melee units while still allowing the ability to scale up as the Lich levels up. This tuning makes the ability slightly worse at level 1, the same as it is currently at level 2, and better at level 3. So people aren't too happy about this one. I think 2 seconds might be a bit stingy. I think it could be like 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. might be a better change, because 6 seconds almost seems like too long. It's annoying. Have you ever been hit by a Nerubian tower and had to take 17 minutes before it stopped actually slowing you down? Yeah. So if we could just reduce the amount of slowing effects, that would be actually better in the long run. So I think 3, 4, 5. Personally, I don't think it should go more than 4, but if they're going to do this change, then it should be 3, 4, 5. Boneyard no longer requires sacrificial pit. We currently believe it takes too long for frostworms to see play. This change should allow players to find strategies to use frostworms. Yeah, they misspelled frostworms here. So there's quite a few mistakes people were pointing out beforehand. So yeah, obviously developers don't actually know how to spell units in their own game, but there you go. And should also help in conjunction to the night change in this patch. I mean, maybe these are frostworms, as in the original frostworms that were actually land-based and didn't fly. They were ground units. So these might be a new unit that we're going to get all together. That'd be cool. But probably not. So what's this? Yeah, people think this is a big deal. I don't think it is. Boneyard never felt like it was that much of a pain in the butt to actually build in the first place. Towards the mid to late game, I never felt like I had lumber issues as an undead, and an extra 150 gold or whatever it costs to put it down isn't a big deal. And having the access to a sacrificial pit, that's what I'm talking about, for shades is very useful. They're moving sentry wards. They're pretty darn good units. So I think this is a fine change, because you can still build the sacrificial pit. I think this is fine. I don't care. Let Undead build their frostworms a bit faster if they want. It's going to be annoying in freaking 4 versus 4 RT, but for 1 versus 1, which most of these patch notes are really based on, I think this is fine. Items. Yeah, I disagree with all of this, by the way. So essentially what they've done is Flute of Accuracy, Jang of Endurance, Kagger's Pipe of Insight, Legion Doomhorn, Scourge Burn Chimes, Warsong Battle Drums, and Lion Horn of Stormwind. Those are all the auras. So plus damage to range, melee, all that kind of stuff. It's been reduced. I don't like that. Currently, they sit at like the level 1 equivalent for the most part for all the heroes. So it'd be like level 1 Priest of the Moon aura. I get it that they're very strong, but it's because the other items that drop are weak in comparison. So you either buff up the other items that drop, or you just don't allow it for them to drop and have a separate item table. So that way a map creator can say, this unit is going to drop. Well, they can do that anyway, technically, but if they were using the random item table, which most of them do, this unit is going to drop an aura item. So you are guaranteed to get one of these auras, rather than get a crystal ball of trash, which no one likes getting. It's just a 200 gold item, basically, you sell. Speaking of which, all items resale percentage increased from 50% to 75% of the item's original cost. So I think this is a change in the right direction, but I think 75% might be too much. I think it should probably be 66%. There's currently a deal where the Scroller Town portal, which costs 350 gold, sells for 262 gold on the PTR, which is obviously quite a significant improvement on the 175 gold that it sells at 50%. So you think about Blade Master that sells their town portal, or anyone really that has a particular strategy to rush or get an extra advantage. They've got even more of an advantage at that start to pick up whatever it is that they need to pick up. So I disagree with the 75%. I think it's nice. I wouldn't mind it for 4 versus 4 RT or whatnot, getting rid of some items, because I sell a lot of items, so it'd be good for me. But I'm talking from a balanced perspective. I think 66% is a better angle. It's harder to do the math on all these kind of bits and bobs, but either that or you take it down to 70%. But you've got to be careful, because this makes sitting at 50 food even stronger. So the way items work is you sell them, but they are affected by tax. So if you're at 50 food or under, you get the full value. If you're at 70 food, up to 80 food, sorry, TFT, yeah, you're gonna get less money for it. So, and the same goes for 80 plus. So you get significantly punished to the point where you get way more selling it at 50 food. So a lot of people are going to be encouraged to sit on 50 foods here, which just encourages more money to come into the bank. and banking even more, and then you can splurge that all at one moment just for a ton of effective power spike value. So 75% probably too much, 66% probably better. That's my opinion though. These are probably the biggest changes in this patch. We're making some changes to all the aura items to reduce their effectiveness. We believe that these aura items do have a place in the game, but should not have parity in power to the actual hero ability. Also, due to the nature of some items being more impactful than others, we're increasing the sell rate of items to help mitigate some potential bad item luck that players may experience, which can ultimately determine the outcome of some games. I think the auras is maybe more of a 1 versus 1 issue. You might have to specifically look at each aura and change their impact depending on how powerful they are. I would say the Khadga's Pipe of Insight is probably one of the most powerful ones, which is why it got changed 0.75 to 0.5. A lot of them are just down 0.25 anyway. If you get an undead player that gets Khadga's Pipe of Insight, I can understand that being too strong, but it's not easy. It's not easy. So yeah, basically my thoughts are a lot of these patch notes are in the right direction, but I did have criticisms with the aura changes because personally I don't like that. Just make the other items in line with it. Everything else seems fine. Some of the human buffs are quite strong, but I definitely want the improved lumber one way or another, whether human peasants get it as a default up to 15, maybe preferably 20, instead of even having to research this. Would be way better because it sucks trying to get lumber as a human player. Welcome back, Blizzard. Don't forget that there's still a lot more you need to do, and not just balance updates. So custom campaigns, work on those please. Legitimately, there's tons of custom campaigns that just actually can't be played anymore. Like, it's not like you can get around it, you just cannot play them anymore. That's a big deal. Right now we can play ladder and war free champions, but you actually cannot play these custom campaigns, and obviously do a search feature. So there you go. Those are my thoughts and opinions on the PTR. Nice to see that they're still actually doing something. My opinions are that if Diablo 2 Reforged is... I said it. Diablo 2 Resurrected. Oh, Freudian slip. Diablo 2 Resurrected is successful, then Blizzard are going to be more encouraged to come back and finish up Warcraft 3, in my opinion, and do it right. I think that is imperative that they actually do a good job with Diablo 2. Because that way the team won't get disbanded. And they'll actually come back and finish Warcraft 3. So, here you go. Have a good one. Take care. All the best.